It is 7 o'clock. This masterclass webinar has been sponsored by Brendan Ireland, who is the creator of the National College of Hospitality. 1. These sessions are a free resource and people who present get no remuneration whatsoever. 2. No advertising is allowed. 3. Please raise your hand if you want to comment. 4. This session will be recorded. 5. Please be respectful. 6. Only people who take an active part will receive a CPD certificate. 7. Please email Steve if you would like a certificate mail at stevepepper@co.uk. 8. We are looking for people to help us run these sessions. If you have some knowledge you'd like to share, please let Steve know. Now, I want to hand you over to Steve Pepper, who will be able to tell you about tonight's masterclass webinar.
Right, that's me. Oh, we've got one or two more people on, so that's great. Right, I'm going to get Shana to share her screen, and we've got all these other people on here as well. So, Shana, if you want to get your screen running, and then we can start the quiz. Oh, before we start, if everyone can find on the bottom, not quite to the left-hand side, there's a button called Chat. Now, if you go on there, it should come up with Chat to everyone. But if you can change the everyone on the drop-down menu to drop it down to do me as one of the participants, I will be able to give feedback because Shana can't do the presentation and read the chat easily. So if you set it to message me, and after the first 5 questions, I will give feedback. We'll give you about a minute to answer the question to me. I'll give feedback, then Shana can give the actual message itself. Okay, Shana?
Yeah. Yes, I'll just put this in presentation. Just bear with me. Doesn't want to do it. Oh, there. Oh, went too far. Yeah, so hi. Yeah, my name's Shauna. I'm a Chartered Environmental Health Officer, and I work in the food team for a London borough. And yeah, I'll be doing a webinar in regards to sort of oyster safety. And I've got a little list of things that I'm going to be doing. So I'm going to talk a little bit about myself. I'm going to do a little quiz, but it's like a fun quiz. It's not, it's not anything serious. So if you get a question wrong or you're not sure, then it's not a problem. We'll go through it all together. And then I'll do a short presentation in regards to oysters. And then there'll be an opportunity to do questions, answers, and feedback. Because this is an open forum. It's a masterclass. It's not like a lesson. So I'm happy to have backwards and forward communication. Okay, so I'll just go to the next slide. Yeah, so a bit about me. So at the moment, I'm working in food safety enforcement and also infectious disease control for a London borough. And I've had several years working in environmental health. And I first started off with statutory nuisance and as a trainee officer while I was training to be an EHO. And then I went on to do health and safety. And then I went on to do environmental protection and kind of a bit of statutory nuisance as well. And now I'm kind of in the flow of food safety. That seems to have caught me for most like several years. And yeah, I really enjoy it. It's good. And, I like connecting with other, environmental health professionals, trainers, and, businesses and things like that. Because, every day is a school day, I find, and when I do inspections, I always, try and get, I try to learn something new from every inspection that I do, every visit I do. So, I try my best not to be too closed because I find food businesses and staff are a lot more open with me in regards to, talking about the inspection and me trying to assess the risks and everything. But I'll just go on to the next slide. So I just wanted to just note that, the views in this masterclass are my own and they're not linked to my employer, and it's not food safety advice. So if there's anything here, it's best to clarify it yourselves through legislation, guidance through the FSA. Okay, thank you. So yeah, so this is quiz time, and the next slide will talk about like the instructions like Steve was talking about, but I'll just read through this, and if you're not clear of anything, then please let me know. It's just a fun little quiz before we get started. Okay, so here's the instructions. So this is in the way. Let me just move this. This is a fun and instructions for the quiz. So get ready for some fun. We'll start with a quick quiz before the presentation begins. So please pay attention to me and Steve in regards to the instructions on how the quiz will work, and the questions will be displayed on the screen. So when I do the next slide, you'll see the questions, and there'll be 4 questions, and then you just answer, A, B, C, D, and direct to Steve Pepper on the chat. So when you go to the chat, there's a little chevron, you click that, and then you can do a direct message to Steve Pepper with your answers. And because I've got limited access to the chat while I'm sharing, so if you're able to message Steve directly, that would help. And then once he receives all your answers, he can provide some feedback and confirmation, and then I can reveal the answers on the next slide. And then after the quiz, you can sit back and relax, and then I'll take control of the presentation.
Yeah, just to let you know that when I get the answers back, my feedback will not mention names. So it'll be something like, oh, well, 3 people got that right, 1 right, a couple didn't. And then we'll go on to the next slide, which will be Sean will give the answer to. Okay.
Yeah, no, that sounds great. Okay, so I'll just go to the next slide. So, like I said, remember to private message Steve with your answer, but I'm going to read out the question, and then I'll give you maybe a minute or so just to get those answers in, and then if the answers come in quicker than that, then Steve can give us the feedback, and then I'll provide the answer. So question 1. Regulations and legislation. What EU of fishery products and live bivalve mollusks in the UK? Is it A, Regulation 853/2004 retained, B, Regulation 2004/453, C, Regulation 535/2005, or D, Regulation 852/2014 retained? So if you can get your questions directly to Steve Pepper, that would be great. Thank you. And
I'm starting to get some answers in.
Oh, great.
The majority of which, Lindsay Beasley, just go to chats and select me. Where it says everyone, change everyone to me. Okay. Yeah. Getting there slowly.
Okay, no problem.
Yeah. Well, the majority of you have gone for A. I think there's a couple who weren't too sure, but that's one of the reasons for having it is it's a learning curve as well. So if this gets your head down into what the right answers are, you'll have learned something, which is the purpose of it.
Yeah, no problem. Oh, that's great. Thanks for the feedback, Steve. Did anyone else have
Well, someone else
any
has
thoughts
said
on that?
someone else said that the retained regs are now referred to as assimilated. I'm not 100% sure on that one, but whatever. They were taking over when Brexit happened.
Yes.
We just took over the whole of the regulations and made them into UK law.
No, that's correct. It is now
Yeah.
assimilated. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, no, that's
Yeah,
great.
thanks,
But
Simon.
every day's a school day. So if there's any things that, need to be corrected, then I'm happy to have a look at that. So thank you very much for the feedback. And we'll have a look, see what it says. So yes, so like Steve said, the majority of people went with A, which is Regulation 853 2004 retained. So the reason is because, oh, this has got in the way. Let me just move this. The reason for that is because Regulation 853 2004 retained governs the handling and processing of fishery products and live bivalve mollusks in the UK, ensuring safety and hygiene standards. So that's great. So those that weren't sure, it's answer A. So
Yeah.
if
Good learning
and
curve,
that's
it's
the
a good
reason.
learning curve, and it's also a good way of refreshing your knowledge, just in case, oh, I've forgotten about that. Yeah, so that's the reason for. This is the first time we've done such a quiz, and I know Dave, who's not here tonight, has said he thought it was a good idea, and we're certainly getting the feedback that we need for this. So well done, all of you.
Yeah, so thank you for taking part in this. And I forgot to say there'll be like 5 questions. So you just got 4 more to go, and then I'll get straight on with the quiz. Okay, so we'll go to the next one. So question 2, which pathogen is associated with oysters or shellfish, especially risky for individuals with compromised immune systems and can cause severe gastro illness? So is that A, salmonella, B, norovirus, C, C, I can't pronounce it today. And
Vibrio vulnificus.
yeah, I know, I don't know what's going on with my, I think it's the end of the day, I can't. And then D, E. coli. So if again, can we do the same as what you did before? Direct message Steve Pepper your answers, and then we can feed back with the answer. Thank you.
Well, it's a bit more, what's the word? A lot of people will not have heard of C.
Okay.
Right? But I think you're going to talk about that later on.
Yes. Yes.
Now, they can all be found in oysters and shellfish. So that's not new. But which of these is the most significant one? And Shauna is going to tell us about that in a minute. So 1 or 2 of you got the right answer, but most of you have gone for C, but 1 or 2 have not gone for they've gone for the others. Okay, Shauna.
No, that's great. So yeah, so the answer, surprisingly for some people, is actually C. And the the reason is it poses the is it vibrovinus vinicus
Oh, vulnificus.
vinicus, yeah, poses a significant risk, especially to immune compromised individuals, and can cause severe gastrointestinal illness. So it can be quite distressing for, people that, get this sort of illness from shellfish and oysters. I don't know, has anyone heard of this one, or?
Well, we've heard of it. The thing is that what one of the symptoms is that this actually can be fatal in some cases.
Yes.
So whereas the others might make someone really ill, but not necessarily all of them will kill someone. But this one can kill people, which is why it's the most important one.
Yes, yes, exactly. Yeah, so thank you for sharing that. So the next one is question 3. So question 3 is yeah, hang on, sorry. Hang on, sorry. Yeah, sorry about that. Just a slight technical problem.
Right.
Yeah, so I'm back. So question 3.
Yeah, good
Yes.
feedback. And most of you have got C, dried eyes. Yeah.
Mm.
The A, B, and D are all things that you can get, but dry eyes isn't one of them. I don't know. That's if I'm right, anyway. Okay, Shona.
Yeah, sorry about that. So we're going to question 4, is it?
No, you'd have gone to the answer.
Oh, sorry, I've got to get, I can't move oh yeah, there you go. Yeah, so it was dry eyes, which makes sense because that's not typically associated with food poisoning illness, especially caused by contaminated shellfish. And the other options are, so yeah, well done everyone for getting that one. And yeah, so we'll go to the next one. So question 4 is importance of awareness. So why is it essential for cases? And is it A, to receive compensation from the government, B, to avoid liability in case of an outbreak, C, to aid in investigations and prevent further illnesses, or D, to receive medical treatment vouchers? So if you can again answer directly to Steve Pepper, and then we can get feedback in about a minute or so.
I just think I've got most of the feedback in. And I think there's only the odd one that hasn't got C for an answer.
Okay.
So Shona, if you want to
Yeah, I'll go to the next slide. Yeah. So the next slide, so the answer is C, to aid in investigations and prevent further illness. And the reason is reporting suspected food poisoning cases is essential to aid in investigations, especially for identifying potential outbreaks and preventing further illnesses in the community. So those that they weren't sure, at least now you know the answer to that one. And you can use that going forward. So we'll go to the last, this is number 5, sorry. So this is question 5, the last one. So this is in regards to traceability. So according to Regulation EC 853/2004 retained, what information should be displayed on the labels of live bivalve mollusks? Is it A, establishment number, packing date, and batch number? B, retail price and expiry date? C, country of origin and distributor contact information? D, barcode and packaging material type. So this is one answer. So if you can get email or private message Steve with your answer. So it's Steve Pepper in the chat, direct message. And I'll give you about 30 seconds to a minute once Steve's got all the answers in.
Well, I'd be very pleased to know that of all the people who responded, wait a minute. Yeah, I've got one query. Someone's queried whether or not they should also be following the labelling requirements, which would be the Food Information Act, 2014. But everyone got A, and I think one person put C, but that's sort of understandable. It's not as clear cut as you might often believe.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for that feedback. And the answer is actually A. So establishment number, packing date, and batch number. And that's because in Regulation EC 853/2004 retained mandates that labels of live bivalve mollusks should display the establishment number, packing number, and optional batch number to ensure traceability. So that's quite interesting, isn't it, everyone?
Yeah.
So yeah.
No, I think that went down very well, Shona, and I reckon that for future presentations, we, I don't know what other people feel, but I think that this is a good way of us learning from each other.
Yeah, and I think it's good to have it just before the presentation as well, because then, it gives you a little kind of insight of what I'm going to be discussing as well. So, I appreciate your taking part in this, and, thanks for joining in on the quiz. So let's get started.
Yeah, well, I've had a couple of comments that have said it was a good quiz.
Oh, great.
And one of them said it's really good, exclamation mark. So that tells you some of the answers.
Yeah, oh, that's great. Thank you very much, everyone. Yeah, so I'll quiz. And yeah, so this is my presentation masterclass. Like I said, this is not food safety advice. This is just my opinion. I'm happy for maybe at the end there'll be an opportunity for questions, answers, and feedback. So if you have anything, just make a note of it or maybe put it in the chat, and then I can have a look at the end of my presentation. All right, thank you. So, oysters are a popular delicacy in the UK. However, there is a risk of foodborne illnesses if not handled, stored, or transported properly. And the key considerations are that oysters absorb everything in the environment. A single oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water a day. So that's why it's really important that where used, and because that will help ensure that it's in regulated and clean waters. But however, there can be issues in regards to the waste sewage companies. They do pollute waters, are regulated waters, but that's why the food business operators and also the local authorities, they do monitor the waters mainly for like E. coli and bacterial things. So if the levels are too high, then they may downgrade the beds, because you get different categories of beds, and there's certain categories where if the water is too poor, then the oysters can't be harvested in those areas. And then also in refrigeration, it's important to keep the cold chain, so keep the oysters cold and chilled, to prevent or reduce bacterial growth, and also to prevent cross-contamination. Keep the area clean just like you would in a food safety environment. And like I said before, proper chilling and storage when purchasing. So if it's purchased at retail or even in a catering, it's still important to have that cold chain. And then also washing and scrubbing, because the oyster shells can be contaminated with sand, grit, and mud. So, at um, the source, you need to make sure, they're kept as clean as possible. And also there, I don't know if people are aware of like shuckling, which is like a technique where it's normally at retail, where they use a knife to loosen the muscle from the shell, so that when the customer wants to eat the oyster, it can just slide straight into their mouth instead of, it being stuck on the shell. Um, and also sometimes there can be a bit of shell stuck in inside as well, because when they break open the shell, sometimes some of it can get into the muscle. So it's a way of inspecting that to, make sure as much of the shell's removed as possible. And if it looks, smelly, discolored, it's a way of kind of discarding that oyster before it's consumed. And also in regards to consumption, you'd need to eat that, eat within days of purchase or harvesting, because you don't want it sitting there in the fridge.
Just going to
Okay.
try to that, Shona.
Yes.
The importance of clean, regulated waters. These are quite often called oyster or shellfish layings. So you
Mhm.
might or might not have heard of that term. But oyster layings is an area where you can grow oysters or other shellfish.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you for that. And then the next part of my presentation, it talks a little bit about like the legislation. So, premises that handle or process fishery products such as, live mollusks, bivalve mollusks, must adhere to, the European Union regulations, which I've mentioned numerous times. And, it's because we don't want members of the public, going to the, oyster beds and, or even non-regulated oyster beds and taking them and selling them and causing, people, lots of people to be, really unwell. So it's a way to control that. And also it's just to ensure safety and hygiene of fishery products, to keep, because these products are intended for human consumption. So we want them to be safe. We want people to, not get sick and unwell, because, it's not good for, the NHS or even for that person. And there are, certain illnesses that they could get, which could, if people are vulnerable, could, they could sadly, die from, eating something like that. So that's why it's important to, have the safety and hygiene. And then, regulatory requirements, establishing requirements for, production, handling, and sale to minimize contamination risk and ensure compliance with safety standards, because it's always good for, food business operators to know what they need to do to, follow certain procedures, guidance, and rules. Because if there's nothing there, different people will do different things and have different levels of standards. So it just helps to give everyone, one set of, you know, what do you call it? A plain field. I can't think of the word,
A
but
level playing field.
yeah, that's it. Yeah, so whatever, that's the word. Thank you. And then also comprehensive coverage. So addressing and processing, storage and transportation, labeling, all those things are really important. And also maintaining food safety standards, because all those things are so important for, this type of product and even any food product. So I just go to the next slide. And, these are, various like pathogens here. So the one that I can't say, so Vibrus vonicus, it causes, causes severe gastrointestinal illness and infections, especially in risk, especially risky for immunocompromised individuals. And then there's, this second one as well. It leads to, gastroenteritis and mumps, from raw and undercooked consumption. So that's why we say it's, important to, make sure, they, the oysters are harvested from regulatory waters. And then also there's norovirus, which is very difficult to even manage and track because it's highly contagious. People could just get infected from, touching things, let alone eating contaminated food. And norovirus infection causes gastroenteritis as well, which is a form of inflammation of the stomach and intestines. And this can lead to diarrhea, vomiting, and stomach pains. It can be extremely uncomfortable for the person that's going through, that particular, pathogen.
One thing, Shauna, to notice about norovirus is that it can be airborne because you don't need many to make someone ill. So if you get an outbreak of norovirus in a public meeting, the most effective way of dealing with it is to close down the toilet areas and stop people going to those areas as well. So it's not just with oysters, but norovirus you get in anywhere that's in close contact with others, such as schools, ships, whatever. You can always get norovirus on them.
Yes, exactly. That's why whenever we get norovirus type cases reported to us, it can be extremely difficult to investigate because it could be from anywhere. So yeah, that's very, very good point. And then also we got hepatitis A virus as well from sewage contaminated waters. And, that can be, from liver inflammation and typically have hepatitis type symptoms as well from that. And then you've got E. coli as well. And E. coli infection can go on to develop a serious condition called husk, and this can sometimes lead to kidney failure and death. Although this is rare, it's it can be very risky for children that are aged under 5. So when that's reported to, environmental health departments, it's treated quite seriously, the investigation. And some people actually that have, some people can be infected, but they don't actually develop symptoms. So it can be, we can get outbreaks and not actually know where they're coming from or where the source is from. And then also you've got salmonella, commonly associated with poultry, but the poultry can contaminate shellfish as well, causing salmonellosis. So yeah, so that's quite interesting, isn't it? So all those things potentially associated with oysters and shellfish. And then you've got the symptoms. So I've kind of talked a little bit about the symptoms already, but I'm hoping no one's eating their dinner at the moment. But environmental health, I think we've got strong stomachs, so we should be fine. But the symptoms and outbreaks, so diarrhea is commonly symptom ranging from which ranges from mild to severe, and also accompanied by abdominal cramps, nausea, and vomiting. And then you can have, like I said above, you've got nausea and vomiting, which is frequently absorbed by observed in gastrointestinal infections and caused by pathogens like neurovirus and vibrio species bacteria. And then also you can get fever, especially associated with systematic infections caused by bacteria, like the two I mentioned before. And then you've got the abdominal pains and cramping, which, can be range from mild to, severe discomfort and pain. And then you've got headaches and muscle aches, dehydration, which is a common, symptom, as and you can get like dry mouth and reduced urine output and fatigue. It can be quite horrendous to get these sort of symptoms. And then even you can get neurological symptoms, which can even cause confusion, seizures, and may even alter mental status as well. People can really, have a hard time with these sort of things. That's why prevention is better than cure. So I'll just go on to the next slide. And then, so recommendations for safe consumption. So it's always like when things are cooked, especially like raw fish and meat and things like oysters, to an internal temperature of 63 degrees or above. It should have said above. It should have said above on this one, and kills bacteria and viruses, making it safe to eat. And by avoiding raw consumption of oysters or shellfish or raw or undercooked, especially if the person has a weakened immune system or certain medical conditions, they should really avoid high risk type foods such as oysters and shellfish that are raw or undercooked or less than thoroughly cooked. To enjoy oysters safely, it's recommended to cook oysters thoroughly using methods such as grilling, baking, frying to ensure food safety. Serving cooked oysters immediately after cooking while they're still hot can to prevent bacterial growth. So I don't know if anyone's familiar with the Michael Winner case. I don't know if anyone even knows who he was, but Michael Winner was known as a British filmmaker, writer, and media personality. And on the 1st of January 2007, Mr. Winner acquired the bacterial infection from eating an oyster in Barbados. So that's why I had that lovely photo there. But unfortunately, he almost had his leg amputated and was on the verge of death several times from eating a contaminated oyster. So these are the associated risks from, so it's really, important, especially when you're on holiday, to kind of pick carefully the types of food that you're going to, eat. Okay, so next slide. And then there's regulatory requirements for food businesses, and I've just made a list here of kind of the things that businesses need to look out for. So each package of live bivalve mollusks from dispatch centres must bear waterproof labels, and the labels to display the establishment number, packing date, and batch number. And then retailers, so the people that receive the shellfish or the oysters, they need to retain these labels for a minimum of 60 days post opening. And the importance of this is the labels enable tracing back to the original source. So if there is a complaint made regarding that particular batch, environmental health officers or even the food business, they can trace back to where, the product originally came from, and potentially, withdrawing or the product so that no more people, or recalling the product so that no more people or customers can eat the infected food. And also, like I said in the quiz, customers and retailers should report suspected food poisonings linked to everyone. I think it should really say food poisonings that are linked to people that have had the same product at the same time, and potentially could be a food poisoning outbreak. But what I normally say to people or food businesses is it's best to just report it, or because you don't know that the local authority might have had a report, and then you've had a report, and then maybe the doctor's had a report, but they're not all reporting it to the same to environmental health. So we don't know that there's actually is an outbreak linked to that premises. But I don't know if anyone else has got different views on that. Maybe in the questions and answers we can discuss that. And next slide. So, reporting food poisoning, we normally say especially to cases, so people that have had the food poisoning symptoms, we say to them to report to their local food team. And if they don't know who that is, they can go to the Food Standards Agency website, and there's a section on there called Find Your Food Team, and you can put in your postcode, and then you can search on that, and then it'll tell you who's the nearest food team to your postcode. And then it'll also give you the website, the email address, and I think it also gives you the phone number. So, and then you can contact the food team to, get them to investigate the alleged food poisoning complaint. And investigations, however, can be challenging, especially if the symptoms have subsided, or the food is no longer available for sampling. Especially with oysters, there's quite a fast turnover, so sometimes there might not be any food left, but it's still worth us investigating, because we have had cases where we haven't had any food, but we were able to link from the food diaries and the people, we were able to link the premises, the people to the premises, and actually it was a successful prosecution from that. So, you don't necessarily need to have the stool sample and the food results. And then I've said here as well, recommendations for investigations is investigate cases even if symptoms have been resolved, as underlying issues may persist, because there might be someone, a member of staff that might be asystematic and they might be actually causing the food poisoning. There might be a supplier that's giving contaminated food. You know, there's lots of different things why, you know, this may have happened. So it's always best to have an open mind. And even, like I said, you know, there could be potential problems with the oyster beds or the supply chain. So, like maybe the van that was carrying the oysters or the food, maybe it wasn't within the temperature, you know, it wasn't at, you know, 8 degrees or below, but normally I say to people to go for 5 degrees and below. But if it's, you know, under, you know, above that, you know, there could be an issue in regards to the oysters as well. And also, you know, testing as well, because whenever, you know, I, you know, investigate food suspected food poisoning complaints, I normally get the individual to complete a health questionnaire, and then if they're still displaying symptoms, you know, consult their GP for medical advice. And also I don't know if all environmental health departments have this, but I know the council that I work for, we can supply stool pot kits, but we would have to talk with the lab first to see whether it is worth sampling for those stools, and especially if you know, they're not having loose stools anymore. Okay. And yeah, so in summary, so there are regulations in place to control the risks. However, for safe consumption of oysters and shellfish is to consume them thoroughly cooked. Please refer to the Food Standards Agency guidance on oysters and shellfish. I've put a link there. And this presentation is for information and isn't food safety advice. And yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed the presentation and the quiz. Yeah,
Yes,
that's
sure.
it.
Thank you very much for a really useful presentation. Mark's got his hand up as well, see. But yeah, that was really useful. What it did remind me of was about 5 years ago, I got a telephone call to say that there was some gang leaders, a bit like the Morecambe Bay outbreak, where all those Chinese people died, sadly died. And apparently they were going to Flamborough, which is where I was originally from, and they were going down Bridlington Bay, and they were taking all the shellfish, limpets, mussels, splitters, whatever. And the thing is that Bridlington Bay isn't a blue beach area, it isn't safe playing. So actually let the Food Standards Agency know, although I never got any feedback for it. But it was just one thing, if you ever get asked that, it's something worth following up. Mark.
No, I was just clapping. I was doing the clapping
Oh,
motion.
thank you.
Yeah, it was really good. Thank you.
Yeah, my first time doing that as well. So I appreciate the positive feedback.
It was funny because I was talking to Steve Pepper via private message. I was like, oh, doesn't most of the bacteria, if not all the bacteria, get killed when you cook? And then obviously the next slide is like, oh yeah, it's right there. No, it's good.
The thing is,
yeah, I was on the right track.
the thing is that there is a time temperature range. So, for example,
yes,
75 degrees Celsius for
30
30
seconds.
seconds
Yeah,
kills everything. Well, it don't kill spores, but it kills off most bacteria. You've then got anywhere below that, I think it's 72 degrees for 2 minutes, and the lower the temperature, the longer it takes.
yes.
So 60 degrees, it might take up to an hour. Can't remember off the top of my head, but that was a general idea. Got some more comments to say. Thank you very much, Shona. So I'm now going to just follow that up. I've got a very short presentation. Hang on, where are we? And this, right, okay. And I just need to get to the beginning.
You have a very clean desktop.
Yeah, Well, this is my laptop. I don't bother that much with. There we go. Right, let's just see how this goes. This is just to look after the parasites and the pathogens in bit more detail.
Oh, I can't hear any sound.
Yeah, am I doing something wrong? I can't hear it.
That was Hebrick. That was a folk band I used to look at in the 70s, and that was a chorus of one of their songs.
I couldn't hear any of that, Steve.
Well, you can't hear me now.
I can hear you, but I couldn't hear the band play.
Oh, right. Well, you might not hear this. I'll have to send you the slideshow.
Norovirus is a highly
There we go.
contagious
I
virus
can hear
that
that.
causes gastroenteritis, leading to symptoms such as vomiting, diarrhea, and stomach pain. It can spread through contaminated food, water, or surfaces. People at risk of norovirus infection include individuals with weakened immune systems, young children, elderly individuals, and those living in close quarters. The treatment of norovirus primarily involves staying hydrated by drinking plenty of fluids to replace lost electrolytes. Over-the-counter medications can help alleviate symptoms like diarrhea and nausea. It is important to rest and avoid contact with others to prevent the spread of the virus. Outbreaks of infectious diseases pose serious public health concerns, leading to the spread of illness and sometimes even causing epidemics. It is crucial for health authorities to swiftly identify and respond to outbreaks in order to protect the population. Hepatitis A contamination in oysters occurs when the shellfish are harvested from polluted waters, exposing consumers to the virus if the oysters are consumed undercooked or raw. Hepatitis A risk factors in oysters include contamination from sewage, improper handling, and consumption of raw or undercooked oysters. Cooking oysters thoroughly is essential to prevent hepatitis A, as the virus may be present in raw or undercooked shellfish. Proper cooking can kill the virus and reduce the risk of illness. To effectively clean and sanitize oysters, they can be soaked in a solution of cold water and salt to remove debris and impurities. Sourcing oysters from reliable suppliers is crucial to ensure the quality, freshness, and safety of the seafood. Proper hand hygiene, including thorough washing with soap and water, is crucial in preventing hepatitis A contamination. This virus can be spread through fecal-oral transmission, making it essential to wash hands after using the restroom and before handling food. The discussion on regulations and guidelines for handling oysters to prevent hepatitis A is crucial for public health safety. Proper handling, storage, and serving of oysters are key to reducing the risk of hepatitis A contamination.
Now, I don't know if the treatment with salt and running cold water is as effective as that video shows, but it's just to be aware of it as possible.
Vibrio parahemolyticus is a bacterium commonly found in coastal waters and is known to impact oysters. It is a leading cause of seafood-related illness and can contaminate oysters, leading to foodborne illnesses in humans. Vibrio parahemolyticus growth in oysters is promoted by warm water temperatures and high salinity levels. Consuming oysters contaminated with Vibrio parahemolyticus can lead to severe gastrointestinal illness, including diarrhea, vomiting, and abdominal pain. In some cases, the bacteria can also cause bloodstream infections, particularly in individuals with weakened immune systems. Common symptoms of Vibrio parahemolyticus infection include watery diarrhea, abdominal cramps, nausea, vomiting, fever, and chills. In severe cases, it can also lead to bloodstream infection and life-threatening complications. Vibrio vulnificus is a bacterium that is commonly found in warm coastal waters and can cause severe infections in humans. It's commonly found in warm coastal waters, particularly in the Gulf of Mexico. Clinical manifestations and symptoms of Vibrio vulnificus infection include fever, chills, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal pain, and blistering skin lesions. In severe cases, the infection can lead to septicemia, necrotizing fasciitis, and septic shock. Oysters can become contaminated with Salmonella bacteria, mainly typhoid and paratyphoid. This is due to them being exposed to contaminated water or improper handling during harvesting and processing. Studies have shown that various Salmonella serotypes, including typhoid and paratyphoid, commonly found in contaminated water. Oysters are filter feeders and can easily be contaminated, thus posing a significant public health risk. The prevalence of these serotypes varies across different geographic regions and can be influenced by environmental factors such as water quality and temperature. Understanding the distribution and prevalence of these serotypes is crucial for implementing effective preventive measures to ensure the safety of oyster consumption. E. coli is a type of bacteria commonly found in the intestines of humans and animals. It can cause foodborne illness when consumed through contaminated food or water. E. coli can contaminate oysters when sewage or animal waste containing the bacteria comes into contact with the water where the oysters are farmed. Oysters can filter and accumulate these bacteria, leading to contamination if consumed raw or undercooked. Consuming uncooked or undercooked oysters contaminated with E. coli can lead to severe gastrointestinal illness, including vomiting, diarrhea, and stomach cramps. In some cases, can even result in kidney failure or death. Oyster harvesting areas are implementing rigorous monitoring and testing measures to prevent E. coli contamination, ensuring the safety of oyster consumers. Recent research has focused on studying the interaction between E. coli and oysters to understand how the bacteria affects oyster health and safety. Parasitic nematodes are a type of roundworm that can infect marine life, such as fish and marine mammals. Anisakis is a genus of parasitic nematodes commonly found in marine environments, particularly in the tissues of fish, squids, and other marine organisms such as oysters. When humans consume raw or undercooked infected seafood, they can become host to these parasitic worms, causing a condition known as anisakiasis. Anisakis infection in oysters can lead to various symptoms such as digestive discomfort, abdominal pain, nausea, and vomiting. The life cycle of anisakis begins when its eggs hatch into larvae in the ocean. These larvae are then ingested by marine organisms such as oysters, where they develop into juvenile worms. The worms then become infective to mammals, including humans, when the infected oysters are consumed. Once inside the mammalian host, the worms mature into adults and reproduce, releasing eggs back into the environment. Anisakis in oysters can pose a health risk to human consumption as the parasite can cause anisakiasis, gastrointestinal infection. Consumption of contaminated oysters can lead to symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and diarrhea. Cooking oysters at a high temperature can destroy the anisakis parasite and reduce the risk of infection. An anisakis infestation in oysters can affect the marine ecosystem by disrupting the natural balance and food chain. The increased presence of anisakis parasites in oysters may lead to a decline in oyster populations, impacting their role in filtering water and providing habitat for other marine organisms. Ongoing research is focusing on developing potential solutions for managing anisakis in oysters. Studies are exploring the use of innovative processing methods, such as high-pressure processing and freezing, to effectively reduce or eliminate anisakis parasites in oysters. Additionally, there is investigation into the use of natural compounds and biocontrol agents to inhibit the growth and reproduction of anisakis parasites, providing promising avenues for future management of this issue. It is vital to recognize the significant impact of anisakis on oysters. This parasitic infection can not only harm the oysters themselves, but also pose potential health risks to consumers. Understanding and addressing this issue is crucial for the sustainability of oyster farming and the safety of seafood consumption.
So that's it. Has anyone got any questions they want to ask me? Hang on a second. Let's come on. I can't. And that was healthy was. Right, it's better. Wait a minute. That's better. So still got quite a few people on there. So what do people think? Any thoughts on tonight's presentation? Has it been
Never
new?
heard of anisakis before.
It's, it's a nematode. It's found in fish. There's 1 or 2 different nematodes that you can find in salt water, probably freshwater as well. You find them quite a lot on things like raw cod and haddock and other marine.
Oh yeah, the wormy things. Yeah.
Yeah, but if you ingest them when they are cooked, you've a problem. So if you see Robson Green on telly with his fishing thing, and he then eats a raw fish, right? If you're doing what they call sushi, the regulations are that you've got to freeze it. I can't remember the time now. It's certainly for more than 24 hours to kill any parasitic worms.
I think it's 48 for -20, but if it's farmed,
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't.
Yeah.
If it's
Sounds about
farmed,
right.
it doesn't apply though.
Sorry?
It's only on wild fish. If it's farmed, that rule doesn't apply.
Well, no, but again, I personally wouldn't want raw fish, and I certainly wouldn't want. The only raw fish I've ever consumed has been smoked salmon from a reputable supplier.
You're just like my colleagues at work, because I absolutely love sushi and I have it almost all the time, and they will never go near it.
No. Well, if it's been prepared properly, that's not a problem.
Yes.
But if it hasn't been prepared within that temperature of freezing, then you've potentially got a problem. I remember when I was a trainee chef back in the 70s, I once had to prepare some mussel mariniere, as they were called, mussels in a sauce. But because we were doing it for an exam, I had to taste it. And a couple of years before that, I'd been to the pub on Christmas night. I bought a pint of Guinness and I bought a small bottles of cockles. And on my way home, I had violent vomiting. And since then, I've never touched shellfish. But when I was doing my exam, I had to taste the fish, which wasn't very funny. And I've never touched them since. Sorry, right, I've got a couple of people put their hand up. Have you got your sound on? Duncan.
Yeah, just the only thing that wasn't really mentioned was things like paralytic shellfish poisoning. So where shellfish has become contaminated with algae and concentrated biotoxins.
Yeah.
Because the major problem with that is they're generally not destroyed by cooking. So it makes the shellfish completely unsafe to eat.
Which is why it's important to have it from a reputable source.
Yeah. They generally try to monitor it, but there have been outbreaks, particularly in places like the Gulf of Mexico and the east coast of America, and it's generally it generally happens in more localized areas where there's been an algal bloom in a particular bed, and it's not been...
these algal blooms, which you sometimes get in the UK, but more commonly associated with warmer waters. Okay, ALP.
What's the infective dose for the 2 Vibrio bacteria, Ornithicus and Parahaematicus?
I don't actually know, but I think it's because they're both foodborne illnesses, it's lower than food poisoning. Yeah. So food poisoning, you might need something up to, say, for salmonella as a food poisoning rather than a foodborne disease, requires about 1 million. Whereas something like Campylobacter, it can be as few as 500 or small even. I mean, some organisms, such as E. coli, it can be less than 10. So I don't personally know what the infective dose is for the Vibrio group. I'd have to do some research to find that out. It's not something you come across in the UK that often.
As a follow-up, do you know how many cases occur in the UK for these 2 bacteria?
Don't think I haven't got access to any information on that. I know they exist, but what's the word? That they exist, but they aren't that common.
Okay. Just a point. Shauna's presentation mentioned retail. people would, on the street think of retail as a shop. But the definition for retail sales is under the Assimilated Regulation 178/2002, Article 3, Paragraph 7. And that includes a wide range of food businesses, including restaurants.
Yes, that's correct. Yes. Yeah, thank you for clarifying that. Thank you very
Some
much.
people, think of the common man term for retail. I think it's only shops like Tesco's, but it covers most food businesses.
Mhm.
So you always need to go back to your definitions and find, what the law says.
No, I appreciate that. That's good. It's good for the recording as well. At least that can clarify that as well.
Yeah, I've just got a message of Duncan about, he's just quickly Googled it, and there's about 1 million infections for Vibrio via a quick Google. But whether that's not for the UK, I gather that's a worldwide infection, but it occurs more often in warm waters like Japan, Mexico, America, etc. Right, so everyone happy with that? Any questions? What I will do is I will edit the video that we made of tonight. I'll send it out to everyone on my list. I'll send out a PDF of Shauna's handouts and also the link to the guidance on FSA. Mine, unfortunately, I can't give you a handout for that, but you can see it on the video if you want to watch it again. And if you want a certificate because you've attended tonight, send me an email. We'll leave it while we're later on in the week. Okay, thanks and bye.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you. That was
Thanks
great.
a lot, Steve,
Thanks again.
again, as
Thank
usual.
you.
Oh,
Cheers.
by the way,
Bye.
just one quick thing.
Yeah.
If anyone wants to
Thanks, bye.
help us cover June's issue, I would be grateful for anyone who can actually do what Shauna's done for us tonight. I'll be grateful. Shauna, do you want to stop on?
Yeah, I'll stay here. Yes, no problem.